In the dusky embrace of Valoria's twin sunsets, a young alien girl named Lyra meandered through the desolate landscape known as the Fringe. It was a place where the glittering edges of her civilization crumbled into the untamed wilds of the planet, a physical representation of her own, fall from the grace of societal acceptance due to her ailment. An ailment that Valorian medicine, with all its advancements, could not cure. Her people's whispers painted humans as interlopers, stories meant to instill fear and promote purity. Yet the sight that greeted Lyra's wide, curious eyes was far from the monstrous images spun in tales by her ancestors. Instead, beneath the settling dust and smoldering remains of what was clearly a crash, lay a figure, bruised, battered, but undeniably human. The setting suns cast a warm glow on his pale skin, contrasting sharply with the cerulean of her own. He was unlike any being she had ever seen, with his odd attire and softer lines, struggling for breath. And yet there was no mistaking the intelligence, the emotion, that flickered across his face even in the throes of pain. It was a look of desperation and silent pleading that cut through her initial shock, tugging at strings of empathy she hadn't known she possessed. Where her people saw danger, Lyra saw an opportunity, a chance not just for his salvation, but perhaps for her own. As night began to claim the sky, bringing forth the first glimmers of stars, Lyra wrestled with her conscience. To help this human would defy the most sacred laws of her land, to invite peril upon herself. Yet, as the cool night air whispered across the Fringe, she made her decision. With cautious steps, she approached the stranger, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Reaching out, her hand hovered mere inches from his arm. The stories had always painted such a moment as a prelude to disaster, but as her fingers finally made contact, feeling the warmth of his skin, she was struck by a revelation. This creature, this man, was not the monster of Valorian nightmares. He was just different. And different was not something to fear. In that gentle touch, a silent accord was struck. Lyra would not be the harbinger of death to this stranger. Instead, she would be his guardian, his protector, his healer. It was an act of defiance, a rebellion against the unseen chains that bound her people to fear and ignorance. With renewed resolve, she began the painstaking task of dragging the injured human back to the secrecy of her abode, away from prying eyes and the judgment of her kind. This was the beginning of an unlikely alliance, an alliance that would challenge the very foundations of Valorian society. It was a tale that would one day be told across the stars, a tale of how one girl, armed with nothing but compassion and courage, stepped beyond the realm of belief to save a life. Not just any life, but the life of one from another world, forever altering the course of her own. For Lyra, this twilight rescue was only the first step of a journey that promised to unravel everything she knew to be true. The human's name was Thomas, a medic from a far-off world, stranded and alone on a planet that viewed his kind with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Lyra had hidden him in the cavernous folds of an abandoned Valorian outpost, a remnant of a bygone era of expansion and conquest, now nothing more than hollowed halls of silence and dust. As days melded into nights, Lyra watched over Thomas with a vigilance that was all-consuming. She learned quickly, her mind absorbing the human's raspy instructions as he guided her hands to administer the foreign medicines he carried in his kit. Strange vials and tools, their purposes and designs as alien to her as she was to him. Yet with each passing hour, his breaths grew less labored, his moments of consciousness more prolonged. Under Lyra's attentive care, Thomas began to regain his strength, and with strength came stories, tales of Earth, a planet of blue oceans and green lands, of people with ambitions that reached for the stars. He spoke of his own journey, a mission of peace and exploration that had gone awry, leaving him a castaway in Valorian space. His tales were filled with concepts that challenged Lyra's understanding of life and existence, of a cosmos shared by countless species, each with their own dreams and fears. Thomas's presence became a beacon in Lyra's life, disrupting the steady rhythm of isolation she had known. His gratitude towards her was evident, his gestures and smiles a universal language that transcended any verbal barrier. But it was the moments when he spoke of medicine, of healing not just the body but the soul, that Lyra felt a kinship most profound. His knowledge was a revelation to her, a glimpse into a world where her disease might not be a death sentence, but a problem to be solved. Together, they began to experiment with treatments, combining Valorian botanicals with human pharmaceuticals. It was a dance of science and instinct, of trial and error, as they navigated the delicate process of healing. Lyra became a conduit between the advanced techniques Thomas introduced and the natural resources her planet provided. She was amazed at the humans' approach to medicine, holistic, compassionate, and above all, innovative. In the secrecy of that abandoned outpost, a new hope was born. Lyra's condition improved in ways that Valorian medicine had never achieved. It was a quiet miracle, one that should have brought her joy. Instead, it seeded a growing dread, for with each step towards health, she knew they edged closer to discovery. The outside world would not understand, could not comprehend, the silent pact that had formed between human and Valorian. Lyra knew that the path she now walked alongside Thomas was one of danger. If word of his existence and their work were to reach the ears of the Valorian authorities, it would spell disaster for them both. But as Thomas's health returned, so did his spirit, and with it, a determination to not hide in the shadows. He spoke of revealing himself, of showing her people the potential for unity and progress. Lyra, inspired by his vision yet terrified of its implications, found herself at a crossroads. Could she stand by the side of this human, defy her people's expectations, and champion a cause that might alter the course of Valorian history? The question lingered in the air between them, heavy with the weight of unspoken consequences. Yet, as Lyra observed the man who had become her closest confidant, her mentor, her friend, she realized that the decision had already been made. In the end, it was not a choice driven by logic or strategy, but by the simple, undeniable truth of their shared humanity. So it was decided. Together, they would step out from the comforting shroud of secrecy and into the glaring light of judgment. The world would learn of the human medic and the alien girl whose lives had become irrevocably intertwined. They would stand united, ready to face whatever storms their revelation might bring. For in the balance hung not just their futures, but the possibility of a new era for all of Valoria. The murmurs of dissent began as a whisper within the halls of Valorian power, a disquieting rumor that an alien had been saved by a human's hand. It spread like wildfire, stoked by the winds of change and the fears of the ruling elite. To them, Thomas's existence was not a marvel of the cosmos, but a threat to the order they had so meticulously crafted, a symbol of defiance against Valorian sovereignty. Lyra's improvements, once a private victory, became the fulcrum of a growing movement. Her recovery was undeniable, a living testament to Thomas's skill and the potential for human medicine. But with each success came scrutiny, and with scrutiny, danger. They were no longer just a healer and his patient. They were revolutionaries, whether they accepted the title or not. Their efforts to remain hidden, to continue the delicate work of healing and discovery, were inevitably compromised. The Valorian Guard, a force as old as the cities themselves, began their search. It was a matter of time before they would find the hidden outpost and unearth the truth of the alien girl and the human who dared to trespass on Valorian tradition. The pursuit was relentless. The Guard's drones scoured the fringe, their sensors piercing through the camouflage of rubble and ruin. Each day, Lyra and Thomas prepared for the eventuality of their discovery, formulating plans of escape, plans to protect their research, plans to continue the fight from the shadows. However, as the noose tightened, an unexpected ally emerged from within the Valorian populace. There were those who had long questioned the rigid doctrines of their leaders, those who saw in Thomas not a menace, but a messenger of unity and progress. A clandestine network of sympathizers began to form, aiding Lyra and Thomas, smuggling supplies, and obscuring their trail. It was a perilous time, a game of cat and mouse played on a planetary scale. For every close call and narrow escape, the conviction of their cause only strengthened. They were the ember of a burgeoning rebellion, a call for a new understanding between species and a challenge to the old ways. Their efforts culminated in a daring plan, a broadcast that would share the truth of Thomas's medicine and Lyra's healing across the planet. It was an all-or-nothing gambit, one that would expose them completely, but promised to tip the scales in their favor. If they could reach the hearts and minds of the Valorian people, they might just spark a revolution. The day of the broadcast arrived like a storm on the horizon, full of energy and potential wrath. In the depths of the outpost, amongst the humming machinery and coiled wires, Lyra and Thomas made their final preparations. The air was electric with anticipation, charged with the hope and fear of what was to come. As Lyra's hand hovered over the device that would send their message into the ether, she locked eyes with Thomas. In that moment, no words were needed. They had come so far from strangers in the fringe to comrades in arms. Together, they had bridged worlds, defied odds, and redefined what it meant to be Valorian and human. The transmission was sent, a cascade of signals that pierced the atmosphere and washed over the cities and wilds of Valoria. Lyra's voice, calm and steady, narrated their story, flanked by images of her transformation and Thomas's unwavering determination to heal. It was a plea for understanding, a demonstration of compassion, and the tangible benefits of their union. The response was immediate and tumultuous. While some called for their heads, branding them traitors and aberrations, others rose to their defense, championing the cause of progress and partnership. Valoria was divided, its society standing on the brink of a renaissance or a return to the shadows of ignorance. As the debate raged, the Valorian Guard finally descended upon the outpost, their arrival an inevitability that Thomas and Lyra had long accepted. Yet, as they were led away in restraints, their eyes were not downcast. For in the crowd that had gathered, in the faces of the young and the old, the rich and the poor, they saw it, the flicker of understanding, the seed of change. They had sparked a conversation that would not be silenced, ignited a desire for knowledge that would not be quenched. The story of the alien girl and the human medic would be told and retold, a legend in the making. It was the beginning of an age where no one believed, except those who dared to imagine a different world, a world where Valorian and humans stood together, united in the pursuit of a better future. The narrative of Lyra and Thomas, once whispered in secrecy, echoed through the chambers of the Valorian High Council, shaking the marbled pillars of governance. With the broadcast's waves dissipating into the cosmos, the ripples came lapping back in forms of protests, debates, and clandestine meetings that filled the nocturnal streets of Valoria with whispers of change. The High Council, draped in their traditional garbs of office, convened in an emergency session. They were the preservers of the Valorian way, the custodians of a society that boasted order and purity above all. The humans' medical practices, so alien and unpredictable, threatened to unravel the fabric of their controlled existence. Yet the evidence of his success, a cured Lyra, was irrefutable and broadcasted for all to see. Amid the rising tide of public opinion, factions formed. The progressives saw in Thomas's methods a new dawn, a future where Valoria could leap into a broader interstellar community. The conservatives clung to their heritage, viewing the humans' presence as a contagion that threatened to corrupt their identity and autonomy. For Lyra and Thomas, held in confinement beneath the watchful eyes of the guard, the council's decision was a beacon that would either signal their doom or their deliverance. The cell that contained them was stark, a small space that seemed to shrink with each passing moment, yet it could not contain the magnitude of what they had set in motion. Their trial was swift, the council eager to reach a resolution as the populace's unrest grew. Arguments were presented, with the prosecution painting Thomas as a malevolent influence, an invader with methods that could not be controlled or understood. The defense, bolstered by the testimonies of those who had witnessed Lyra's recovery firsthand, argued for the potential of a new era of medical enlightenment. As the verdict loomed, Lyra, once a silent observer in her own life, found her voice. She spoke not just to the council, but to her people, to anyone who would listen. Her words were heartfelt, a mix of vulnerability and strength, a call to look beyond fear and prejudice. The council's decision was divisive. In a landmark judgment that would forever alter the trajectory of Valorian society, they ruled to integrate human medical knowledge, albeit under strict regulation. Thomas would be allowed to stay, his practices observed and studied. Lyra would be his liaison, a bridge between two species with a shared vision for the future. But their victory was bittersweet. The ruling had opened a chasm within Valorian society, one that would not easily be bridged. Thomas and Lyra understood the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, as they navigated the complexities of cultural integration and the backlash that it might provoke. In the wake of the trial, the city did not rest. The nights were filled with the sound of passionate debate, the air crackling with the energy of potential revolution. Statues of past leaders, once venerated, were now scrutinized under the light of the human's touch. Schools, once the bastions of Valorian lore, now whispered of Earth and its strange inhabitants. Lyra and Thomas, released from their bonds, found themselves at the heart of a societal transformation. The world they had known was changing, evolving into something new and uncertain. It was a reality they had forged together through their shared struggles and hopes. They stood side by side, looking out over the city as it pulsated with life and possibility. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of belonging, not as the sickly outcast or the silent rebel, but as a herald of a new age. And Thomas, the human who had crossed the stars only to crash upon an alien world, found in Valoria a purpose that went beyond survival, beyond the scope of any mission he had been assigned. Their story had become Valoria's story, a narrative of bravery, empathy, and the endless pursuit of understanding. And as Valoria gazed up at the stars, a new chapter waited to be written, not in the isolation of the dark, but in the shared light of countless worlds and peoples yet to be known. The verdict of the High Council rippled through the streets of Valoria, reaching as far as the remote villages nestled among the crystalline canyons and floating isles. While the ruling body had embraced Thomas's presence, a contingent of the guard remained unconvinced, harboring a distrust that festered into resistance. This faction, known as the Sentinels, covertly vowed to uproot any foreign influence, viewing the integration of human medicine as a blight upon their civilization. As the Sentinels' dissent brewed in the undercurrents, Lyra and Thomas emerged from their confinement to find a society in the throes of transformation. They were met with the gaze of a population divided, eyes filled with hope and gratitude, eyes clouded by suspicion and fear. They stepped into a world where their actions had inadvertently painted targets on their backs. The heart of the change lay in the Valorian youth, who rallied around Lyra's story, seeing in it the echo of their own desire for progress. They organized gatherings, disseminating the humans' medical knowledge with a zeal that bordered on the evangelical, spreading the teachings of Thomas as if they were the sacred texts of a new faith. Lyra, whose life had once been ruled by the ticking clock of her illness, now found herself an icon of the future. She navigated her newfound status with a grace that belied her years, becoming a voice for those who yearned for change. Beside her, Thomas, equally elevated and condemned by his actions, worked tirelessly to adapt his methods to Valorian biology, pioneering a symbiosis of interstellar medical practices. But as Valoria stood at the crossroads between its storied past and an unwritten future, the Sentinels acted. Subterfuge led to sabotage as they sought to undermine the fledgling alliance between human and Valorian. Clinics utilizing Thomas's techniques were targeted, supplies vanished, and fear was sown in the darkened corners where the city's light did not reach. The tension reached its zenith when an act of terrorism struck at the heart of the capital. A repository of combined Valorian human research was razed, a stark, burning symbol of the Sentinels' refusal to accept the tide of change. It was a declaration that the old Valoria would not go gentle into the night of transformation. This brazen act of destruction forced the hand of the High Council. They could no longer afford neutrality or passive endorsement. The Council, pushed by the outcry of their people, commissioned a new order, the Harmonizers, to bridge the gap between the opposing factions, to protect the fragile integration of societies, and to ensure that the embers of discord did not ignite into full rebellion. Lyra and Thomas found themselves once again at the vanguard, this time not as defenders of a clandestine cause, but as symbols of unity. With the support of the Harmonizers, they traveled Valoria, speaking to the people, healing the sick, and repairing the schisms the Sentinels had wrought. In each city, each village, each enclave, they witnessed the duality of Valorian nature, the fear of the unknown clashing with the hope for a brighter tomorrow. It was during a grand convocation in Valoria's capital, beneath the towering statues of ancient luminaries, that Lyra addressed the masses. Her voice, once soft and uncertain, now carried the strength and conviction of one who had faced death and defied it. She spoke not of humans and Valorians as separate peoples, but as kin under the stars, bound by their shared mortality and dreams. Thomas, too, addressed the crowd, his words imbued with the humility of a man who had never expected to become a harbinger of change. He spoke of Earth, of the mistakes and triumphs of his own kind, and offered Valoria the greatest gift he possessed, the hope that together they might avoid the pitfalls that had plagued his world, to build a society greater than the sum of its parts. The sentinels, lurking in the shadowed fringes, could not ignore the swell of unity. In the faces of the crowd, in the tearful eyes of those healed by Thomas's hand, in the fervent cheers that rose like a tide, they witnessed the dawn of a new Valoria, a world where their fears had little place. In the days that followed, the violence waned. The sentinels, their numbers dwindling, found themselves outcasts in a society that no longer craved isolation. The harmonizers worked to integrate the dissenters, offering them a role in shaping the future they had so feared. As Valoria healed from its wounds, so too did the bond between Lyra and Thomas deepen. They had become more than friends. They were partners in a dance that spanned the cosmos. They stood together, not just as a symbol of what had been achieved, but as a promise of the feats yet to come. Lyra, once the sickly child of the fringe, had become a beacon of hope, and Thomas, the stranded medic, had found a new purpose in the arms of a world that was once alien to him. Their story, once a tale of quiet rebellion, had become a legend etched in the annals of Valorian history, a testament to the power of unity, the strength of diversity, and the boundless potential of compassion. Valoria, the jewel of the galaxy, now shone brighter, a beacon to the stars, inviting other civilizations to witness the miracle that occurred when an alien girl surprised and saved by human medicine chose to rewrite the stars. With the tide of sentiment turning, the streets of Valoria, once filled with silent trepidation, now thrummed with a cadence of optimism. The harmonizers, in their new role, facilitated forums where Valorians and the few humans on the planet could engage in open dialogue. Thomas's insights into human anatomy and medicine were not just accepted, but eagerly sought after, their novelty providing fresh perspectives on age-old medical quandaries. Despite the burgeoning acceptance, there remained pockets of society, insular and untouched by the sweeping reforms, where the sentinels still found voice and vigor. It was within one such enclave that an event unfolded which would test the very fabric of the newfound Valorian-human alliance. A sickness fell upon the village, swift and severe, a malady that neither Valorian nor Earthborn science could pinpoint with haste. It struck indiscriminately, felling the young and old alike. The enclave, still loyal to the Sentinels' cause, initially refused outside help, but as the death toll rose, they found themselves reluctantly seeking aid from those they once reviled. Lyra and Thomas answered the call, venturing into the heart of the wary community. They were met with a mix of hostility and desperate hope. The enclave's leader, an austere Valorian named Soren, who bore the stoic pride of the old ways, extended a guarded hand in greeting. His eyes, filled with the pain of his ailing people, betrayed his apprehension. In the makeshift infirmary, the air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and fear. Thomas, with his characteristic calm, set to work alongside Lyra, their movements a choreography of efficiency and empathy. Together they administered treatments, their human and Valorian knowledge blending into a potent force against the unseen enemy that ravaged the village. As hours turned into days, a breakthrough came. Lyra, utilizing a combination of Thomas's diagnostic equipment and her own people's herbal lore, identified the pathogen, a rare organism dormant in Valoria's flora, awakened by recent seismic activity. The cure, a synthesis of human pharmaceuticals and Valorian botanical extracts, was as much a product of their unity as it was of science. The recovery was miraculous. Where once there had been suspicion, now grew respect. Soren, witnessing the dedication of the outsiders, felt the walls of his convictions crumble. He saw in Lyra and Thomas not the harbingers of change he feared, but the saviors his people needed. In the village square, where sentinels once rallied the populace with fervent speeches of purity and isolation, stood Lyra, her voice now a clarion call for understanding and acceptance. She spoke not of conquest or submission, but of coexistence and mutual prosperity. Beside her, Thomas echoed her sentiments, his own experiences on Earth a poignant tale of what could be gained from sharing and learning from one another. The village's convalescence marked a turning point. The Sentinel's influence waned, their rhetoric unable to hold sway against the tangible benefits the human's presence had brought. Even the most ardent skeptics could not deny the warmth of a child's renewed laughter or the grateful clasp of hands once racked with illness. In the heart of the once hostile enclave, a monument was erected, not to commemorate the past, but to honor the future. It was a statue of Lyra and Thomas, their figures intertwined, a fusion of Valorian grace and human determination. It stood as a testament to the village's awakening, to the notion that from the union of different worlds could arise a strength unattainable in solitude. The story of the alien girl surprised and saved by human medicine had thus woven itself into the very essence of Valoria. It became a parable taught to children, a curriculum in academies, and above all, a beacon for the many other worlds watching Valoria with curious and hopeful eyes. In the unity of Lyra and Thomas, Valoria found not only a cure for a disease, but the remedy for a deeper malaise, a fear of the foreign, of the other. The two had become one, their legacy a bridge across the stars, heralding an age of interstellar alliance and prosperity. The echoes of their journey resonated across space and time, a reminder that belief, in the end, was the most potent force in any universe. The dawn of this new era on Valoria was not marked by grandiose ceremonies or the unveiling of monuments, though such things existed. It was felt in the everyday, in the normalization of humans walking the streets of Valorian cities, in the collaborative hubs that sprang up like flowers after a long winter, where ideas and cultures intermingled freely. Lyra, once a figure etched in the annals of extraordinary circumstances, transitioned into a role she had never anticipated. Alongside Thomas, she founded the Interstellar Medical Exchange, an institution dedicated not just to the merging of Valorian and human medical knowledge, but as a beacon for all species willing to share in the collective wisdom of the galaxy. The exchange became a nexus of innovation, where the best minds from countless worlds converged to solve the universal puzzles of health and disease. Thomas, for his part, marveled at the unfolding future, a testament to the resilience of unity over division. His work, once confined to the makeshift labs and the desperate scramble for cures in the dark days of their struggle, now influenced policies and curricula. His dream of a shared medical knowledge base, once a distant star, was now the reality under which Valoria prospered. But it was the Valorian youth who truly embodied the change. They grew up not knowing the fear of the other that had once plagued their society. To them, stories of the times before the integration, before Lyra and Thomas's daring defiance of convention, were historical curiosities, lessons on the importance of openness and the value of diversity. As Valoria advanced, so did its reach into the stars. The planet, once wary of the interstellar community, now led the charge in diplomatic missions, its delegates a mix of Valorian and human, symbols of the potential for unity and diversity. These missions opened new avenues of trade, cultural exchange, and most importantly, mutual aid. Lyra and Thomas, in their twilight years, watched from their quiet home on the outskirts of Valoria's capital, their lives a testament to the power of compassion and understanding. Their legacy was not just in the monuments and institutions that bore their names, but in the very fabric of Valorian society, in the seamless integration of worlds and the boundless possibilities it presented. On a clear night, as they looked up at the stars, they saw not the cold, distant lights of unknown worlds, but the warm glow of potential friends, of civilizations yet to share their stories and join the ever-growing tapestry of the galaxy. They saw a future where the story of the alien girl surprised and saved by human medicine was not an anomaly, but a prelude to a universe bound by shared knowledge and mutual respect. And as Valoria slept under the watchful gaze of those stars, it dreamed not of past fears, but of future adventures, of new tales to be woven into the rich tapestry of its history. The planet, once isolated by its suspicions, now shone brightly as a beacon of hope and unity, a reminder to the cosmos that even the most unlikely of friendships could change the course of worlds. And Thomas culminated not with grandiose endings or dramatic finales, but with a serene acknowledgement of the seeds they had sown, which had blossomed into a garden of interstellar cooperation and understanding. The legacy of their journey was not confined to the artifacts and accolades that adorned the halls of the Interstellar Medical Exchange, but lived in the heartbeats of every life they touched, in every Valorian child who grew up without fear of the human next door, and in every human who saw Valoria not as a distant world, but as a second home. The closing chapter of their story was an intimate affair, a simple ceremony attended by those who had stood by them through the darkest nights and brightest days. It was a celebration of life, love, and the indomitable spirit of unity that had guided them through adversity. As they stood hand in hand, Lyra and Thomas looked out over the audience, their eyes reflecting the journey they had undertaken. They saw faces from every corner of Valoria and beyond, representatives of species whose names once would have been unpronounceable, all united by a common thread of hope and curiosity. In his speech, Thomas reflected on the nature of discovery and the essence of healing, not just of bodies, but of societies and souls. He spoke of the journey from the wreckage of his ship to the heart of Valoria, a path paved with challenges, but also with moments of profound beauty and connection. His words were a tribute to the planet that had become his home, to the people who had become his family, and to the woman beside him, who had been his anchor and guiding light. Lyra, with the grace that had defined her leadership, spoke of the future. Her vision extended beyond the present, imagining a galaxy where the lessons of Valoria were a guiding star for other civilizations. She envisioned a universe where the sharing of knowledge was the foundation of a broader, more inclusive community, a community where the distinctions of alien and native blurred into a collective identity of explorers and dreamers. As the sun set on this chapter of their lives, Lyra and Thomas retired from their public roles, passing on the stewardship of the Interstellar Medical Exchange to a new generation of visionaries. They spent their remaining years traveling, both within Valoria and to distant worlds, serving as ambassadors not just of human and Valorian cooperation, but of a broader, more profound message of universal unity. Their final days were spent in quiet reflection, surrounded by the natural beauty of Valoria, in a home filled with mementos of their adventures and achievements. They departed this life as they had lived it, together, their legacy not marked by the silence of their passing, but by the vibrant chorus of a society forever changed by their courage and compassion. The tale of the alien girl surprised and saved by human medicine thus closed, not with an ending, but with an invitation to the reader, to the listener, to the dreamer, to continue the journey they had begun. It was a story that transcended the pages of history, a beacon of hope that shone across the stars, reminding all who looked upon it of the boundless potential of belief, of the magic that happens when worlds come together, and of the enduring power of a single act of kindness to alter the course of destinies. In the years that followed, the universe watched as Valoria transformed from an isolated planet bound by tradition into a linchpin of galactic unity, its influence reaching far beyond the confines of its atmosphere. The story of Lyra and Thomas, woven into the cultural fabric of countless civilizations, served as a testament to the transformative power of empathy and collaboration. The Interstellar Medical Exchange, their most tangible legacy, continued to flourish, evolving into a vast network that spanned galaxies. Under the guidance of those who had been directly touched by Lyra and Thomas's spirit, the exchange became more than a hub of medical innovation. It was a beacon of peace and diplomacy. Its corridors and meeting rooms saw the signing of treaties and the formation of alliances, its foundations built on the mutual respect and understanding, fostered by shared knowledge and common goals. As new threats emerged, from pandemics that knew no planetary boundaries to cosmic phenomena that endangered entire star systems, the exchange stood at the forefront of the response. Teams composed of diverse species worked side by side, their efforts not just combating the crises at hand, but reinforcing the bridges between worlds. It was a manifestation of Lyra and Thomas's dream, a universe united not in fear, but in the pursuit of a common good. On Valoria, the anniversary of the day Lyra and Thomas broadcast their message of unity became a planet-wide holiday, known as the Day of Reflection. It was a time not just to honor their memory, but to celebrate the progress that had been achieved in their names. Cities across Valoria glowed with celebrations that blended Valorian traditions with those of distant worlds, a reflection of the planet's new identity as a crossroads of cultures. The most poignant moment of the Day of Reflection took place in the very heart of Valoria's capital, where a statue of Lyra and Thomas stood. Here, citizens and visitors from across the stars gathered to share stories of hope, of moments when the unlikely and impossible became reality through the strength of unity. Each story, unique in its details, echoed the same underlying truth: that the legacy of Lyra and Thomas was not confined to the past, but lived on in every act of kindness, in every gesture of understanding. In the vastness of space, new stories began to emerge, tales of other Lyras and Thomases who, inspired by the Valorian legacy, sought to bridge divides within their own worlds. These stories, each a ripple originating from the wave that Lyra and Thomas had set in motion, contributed to a growing tapestry of interstellar unity. The universe, once a place of infinite unknowns and insurmountable divides, gradually became a community of worlds, each with its own stories, traditions, and dreams, yet bound by a shared history of overcoming adversity through cooperation. The legacy of Lyra and Thomas, encapsulated in the interstellar medical exchange and the Day of Reflection, served as a reminder that while the universe may be vast and filled with challenges, it is through coming together that those challenges can be met and overcome. As centuries turned to millennia, the story of the alien girl saved by human medicine and the love that transcended worlds became a legend, a beacon for future generations navigating the complexities of interstellar relations. It was a legend that inspired not just cooperation, but a profound unity, a sense that across the vast expanse of space, every life, every world, was interconnected, each a thread in the ever-expanding fabric of the universe. Thus, the story of Lyra and Thomas, while rooted in a specific time and place, transcended its origins to become a universal legend of hope, unity, and the boundless potential of shared humanity and compassion, echoing into eternity. As the legend of Lyra and Thomas transcended time, evolving from history to myth, it wove itself into the consciousness of the universe at a fundamental level. Their story, once a beacon for those who lived in the shadows of their legacy, became the cornerstone of a new age of exploration and understanding, marking the beginning of the epic of alliances. In this era, the interstellar medical exchange, now an ancient institution revered across galaxies, had spurred the creation of similar entities: the Galactic Cultural Exchange, the Interstellar Environmental Coalition, and the Universal Scientific Collective. Together, these organizations formed a united front, addressing not only the medical needs of countless species, but also their cultural, environmental, and scientific challenges. The foundation laid by Lyra and Thomas had grown into a sprawling tree whose branches reached into every aspect of universal society. The Day of Reflection, once a Valorian holiday, had become a universal day of observance, celebrated on worlds beyond count. It was a day when beings from all walks of life paused to acknowledge their interconnectedness, to share in the joy of discovery, and to reaffirm their commitment to the collective well-being of the universe. On this day, the sky above Valoria was alight with ships from distant worlds, each bearing delegates and celebrants, turning the atmosphere into a tapestry of lights as diverse as the beings that navigated them. The legend of Lyra and Thomas also found its way into the education systems of myriad civilizations, taught not as a mere historical event, but as a parable of unity and empathy. Children learned their names alongside the fundamental principles of their own societies, embodying the idea that understanding and cooperation should be as natural as breathing. On Valoria, the original site of the Interstellar Medical Exchange had been transformed into a museum, a place of pilgrimage for those who sought to understand the depth of their legacy. The museum was a place of quiet reflection, filled with artifacts from their journey, interactive exhibits showcasing their achievements, and holographic narratives that brought their story to life. Visitors often left messages of gratitude, personal tales of how the story of Lyra and Thomas had inspired acts of kindness and cooperation in their own lives. Beyond the tangible, the spirit of Lyra and Thomas permeated the efforts of diplomatic missions and peace talks. Disputes that might once have escalated into conflict found resolution in the principles they had championed. The symbol of their intertwined hands, a Valorian and a human united, became a universal sign of peace and mutual respect. In every corner of the universe where their story reached, it ignited a spark of hope, a belief in the possibility of a better tomorrow. It inspired artists and creators leading to a renaissance of works that explored the themes of unity and cooperation, bridging the gap between species through the universal language of art and story. And as the universe continued to expand, with new worlds discovered and new civilizations welcomed into the galactic community, the legend of Lyra and Thomas served as a reminder that no matter how vast the differences between beings, there existed a common ground on which to stand together. Their story, a once singular tale of love and healing, had grown into a guiding light for all sentient beings, a legacy that transcended their individual lives to become a perpetual beacon of unity. It was a testament to the enduring power of compassion, the infinite potential of cooperation, and the timeless truth that in the vastness of the cosmos, connections forged in empathy and understanding are the most profound forces of all. Thus, the epic of alliances, marked by an era of unparalleled cooperation and unity, continued to flourish, inspired by the enduring legacy of an alien girl and the human who changed the world, reminding all who lived under the stars that the most significant journeys often begin with a single courageous step toward understanding.